This happened last night. Before the start of our game in an ongoing Aberron campaign, our level 2 half-elf ranger was dropped in it by his IRL work and had to work late, but he gave the DM permission to use him as a battle NPC. Our mission, as part of an attempt to ingratiate ourselves with a criminal organization, was to hit up a game of 6 stones and kill everyone there, to send a message. When we arrived, there was a room with a bar, 10 attendants, and a cage in the middle, and our tabaxi fighter got excited, because his backstory was that of an underground prize fighter. He signed up for what we assumed was a cage fight. Our plane shifter suggested lighting the bar on fire and just burning the place down, but we wanted to see how the fight played out, so we agreed that could be our backup plan. He disguised himself as an orc and joined too, but myself, Red Dragonborn Rogue, and our Dwarven Druid hung back with our Ranger NPC. 5 of the attendants got into the cage with our 2 friends, making 7 total, and then, as the game started, a cockatrice was released into the cage, and the 6 stones name suddenly became clear to us, last man standing, but 2 of our friends were in there. With this in mind, we immediately decided a better way to cause chaos than just burning the place down was to release the cockatrice, so I did my rogue thing, planning to steal the key to the cage. Now, in our previous mission, our ranger took a magical artifact from an enemy, a lighter that casts a magical darkness in a 15-foot radius that even dark vision can't see through. To aid me with the theft, I waited for my friends to cause a distraction. Our druid cast Entangle into the cage, I stole the key ready to open the gate, the DM as our ranger triggered the artifact, and all hell broke loose. In the chaos, our plane shifter Misty stepped out of the cage and started killing people outside as he'd been caught in the entangle, but more importantly, our fighter committed to his roleplay as a low intelligence guy who didn't hear our plan to release the dino chicken, as he put it, and instead decided to kill it. After a few insane rolls, he snapped the beast's neck, and used it as an impromptu flail to finish off those inside the cage, now with my help as I'd got inside by that point, and the other PCs were taking care of people outside of the cage. Unfortunately, the darkness from the ranger's artifact was causing us just as many problems as it was them. As the fight was beginning to wrap up, the only enemies left were within the darkness with our ranger, and our DM had decided our ranger wouldn't turn off the artifact, so I thought, screw it, he's got high dex and hasn't taken damage yet, and so I shouted to him to duck, and used my breath weapon on the darkness. I got a high damage roll, but sure enough, our ranger rolled a nat 20 on his dex save and took no damage, and the people around him took damage and were brought to death's door. As this happened, the DM asked me if I thought I was trying to also get the bar when I used my breath weapon, and I figured it was just to burn the place down as we left, which was our original plan, so I said yeah. The DM then immediately rolled 8d6 damage on everyone in the darkness as the hard liquor in this illegal underground bar exploded in a confined space. Amazingly, our ranger saved again, but not with a nat 20 this time, so he took half damage, and was brought down to 2. The explosion immediately ended the fight, and the DM dropped the magical darkness, to reveal a bunch of burnt bodies, and our scorched, half-naked ranger looking at me angrily. After the game, I called our ranger, and explained to him what went down, and that he would need to roleplay being angry with me. Anything but a nat 20 on the initial roll and the combined effect would have put him down, and if he additionally didn't save on the second roll, it would have been an insta-kill. That would have been a difficult one to explain. It happened yesterday and it made me want to just throw my PH at the player. We are a pretty tight group. There are 4 player and me. We are all friend in and outside of D&D. We play every weekend and have been doing it for around a year. Well, my monk player is a murder hobo, to a level that I have not experienced before. But he loves D&D combat to a degree that I can respect. But yesterday I wanted to kill him and myself. I had built up this campaign over the year. I had given my players detailed stories about the evil king and his necromancers. Long story short, this was the big battle of the campaign. After this it was basically done. I was hyped AF, but my players more so than me. We all sat down at the table and we began. They had to get to the king first, which was not that big of a deal in the end. But then it started. The Battle of the Ages. If you can even call it that. The king rose from his throne and took his living longsword to swing at the party when the monk said that we all needed to stop. Why? He needed to call his GF. So respectfully we do. He comes back 10 minutes later and asked if we could wrap up BC he needed to go. I told him that no we could in fact not, and if he went he would miss it. So he nodded and stayed. But then it began. I rolled a 19 for initiative and went first, after that the monk went, and so on. I rolled a nat 1 for the king on his massive O attack and missed. After that it was the monk's turn, nat 20. I stare at it as he deals massive DMG and the player smirks. After this 2 spells and 1 attack misses from the other players. Then it's the king. Nat 2, then a nat 3, and finally a nat 1 on his 3 multi-attacks. And guess what happens? The monk players rolls another nat 20 and after that a 19 and then another fucking nat 20. I was at this point in shock as he was legit ripping my bag to pieces. I tried to fix this a couple of times with adding more troops on the king's side. But the party kept killing them whilst the monk kept hitting the king. This continues. This guy rolled nat 20, 19, 18 the whole battle, and the guy smirked more and more whilst as soon as it wasn't his turn he turned to his phone. I even at some point started fudging my rolls, but it was too late. After some time of this the player killed my big alone. And when he, instead of looking back at his phone, he looked at me and said something that made my blood boil to a point I haven't felt for a long while. So when are we gonna fight the king? So not only had he rolled extremely well to the point of me wondering if / how he was cheating and had been smug about it the whole time whilst totally non-caring in the end. He had not listened to me at all when I explained what was happening leading up to the fight. BC he was texting his GF. I was so close to just flip the table and to start throwing books at him. But I instead just walked out of the room. I just sat on the floor outside of the room for 10 minutes before I went in again. I later made it so that the evil king returned as a undeadish, and that fight went worse for the monk, and I fudged the fuck out of my dice to the point where the party almost TPK'd. But then they won. So yeah, everything good in the end. But god, I almost started some real PvP right there.